Hey guys, how you going? I'm Nick and welcome to the weekly Sci-Finatics live stream. Thanks for coming. Hey DJ, how you going, mate? Good to have you here as always. Hey Jerry, hey Jen, everybody who's come along to listen to me talk. Once again, I hope everybody is doing okay, that they're healthy, they're staying, socially distant from everybody else, and everyone's not going too crazy at home in social isolation mode. So it's good we can have things like YouTube to be able to chat about Star Trek Picard and other things like that to pass the time in this difficult world we live in these days. So pretty much what I'm going to have a chat to you guys about today is a bit of an overview, a bit of a recap of season 1 of Picard. Hey Cosmac, hey Glenn, thanks for coming. So we're going to get a bit of an overview of season 1, have a bit of a look back at some of the characters, some of the story points that kind of transversed us through the first season of Star Trek Picard, and talk about maybe what our favourite episodes were, what bits we liked most, maybe bits we thought needed a bit of work, maybe it didn't work as well, and to have a bit of a talk about the characters and so forth as well, and also what we might like to see for season 2. Season 2 is happening, and as I mentioned in my my video last week with my interview with Evan Evagora, Evan said, yeah, the second season is happening. There doesn't appear to be any kind of delay on that due to coronavirus and so forth. The producers haven't pulled the plug on it. He said his production schedule as to when he is meant to be starting to film again hasn't changed. So that's all good news. So hopefully it'll all be going along as planned, and we don't have to wait until 2025 until we get season 2 of the show or whatever. So that's always good news. Okay, so let's Evan. Yay, Evan! Yes, got some good news from Evan. Now just going back on season 1. Let's let me break it down character by character, sort of thing. Maybe starting with Picard. I think I'm not sure your guys' take on this, but I thought the progression of Picard's character was really a very diverse and extensive one, from where he started at the beginning of season 1 to where he ended up. At the beginning of the season, Picard was he was very much a sort of a beaten man. He was living out his days on his vineyard. He was very much living a bit of a hermit's lifestyle, wasn't he? He was a glimmer of his former self, kind of beaten down by the rules of Starfleet and everything that had gone on in the past with the whole synth ban and the attack on Mars and everything. And it really took that first kind of 3 to 4 episodes of the season before he kind of shook off the cobwebs, of his kind of hermit lifestyle, getting around Shadow Picard and having Zhaban and Laris make him probably French baguettes with cream cheese, and wine for lunch every day on the vineyard there. So it really took him a few episodes to kind of get up and about and shake off the blues, because he was kind of obviously a little bit distraught from Data's passing and all that sort of stuff. So really, I think where we saw him at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season were two very different places. By the time he got to the end of the season, he was a bit more like the Picard we once knew. He was in command. He was asking for briefings from his crew. He was commanding people around the deck of the La Sirena, even though maybe he might have ruffled Rios's feathers a few times because he maybe overstepped his position there, not being his ship and him not being the captain of it. But that was all, par for the course, I think, and I guess we kind of all knew that something was going to go down with his illness, because they established that off at the start of the season. So we kind of knew that the illness was going to play a pretty major part in the end of the season, and it did. And I think it didn't disappoint in terms of. It doesn't bother me that Picard's getting around in a synthetic body. I mean, obviously, it would have been too hard from a production standpoint to de-age him. Maybe, I don't know, 10 or 20 years or anything like that. So they just sort of said, "Yep, here's your new body. Away you go." I think, he's sort of, as I think the character said at the end of the season, you could have shaved 20 years off for me, maybe. That would have been nice. But anyway, good to see the chats coming in here. Laris and Zhaban were awesome. Yes, Jen, I agree. Laris and Zhaban were awesome characters. In fact, I missed them a little bit, because we obviously got them quite a bit in the beginning of the season. In the first, I think it was the first, the first 3 episodes, they featured quite heavily. And then once we were off and away in space, we never kind of saw them again. I thought we might have heard from them once or twice more through the second half of the season, even if it's just to kind of send a communication in saying, how you going? Is everything all right? Jean-Luc, have you remembered to take your pedals? Do you remember to take your pedals, Jean-Luc? So these are the sorts of things you got to remember when you're a mature adult in Picard's position. So I miss them. I think it would be good to see more of them in season 2. I'm not sure how that might play out. I'm not sure, because obviously now that Picard, because the way we left the season, we've got everybody on the crew is on the ship. We've got 7 on the ship with the rest of them at the helm. I'm not sure how you rework in Laris and Zhaban to the story again, because obviously they're entrenched in, the Picard vineyard or whatever. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you tie in the Tal Shiar again or something, and, there's a bit of a Romulan angle, because Commodore O is still around. I'm surprised that she didn't get her comeuppance at the end of season 1. Narissa got her comeuppance. She got kicked off the balcony on the Borg cube by 7 of 9. So she definitely got what was coming to her. But Commodore O is still getting around, and the fact that she kind of, worked in Starfleet security as the head for so many years, I think, obviously Starfleet are going to have it out for her. They're going to want their pound of flesh from Commodore O for duping them for so long. So I would imagine there might be some recurring ramifications, perhaps, for Commodore O, maybe. But yeah, there was a lot of story threads that kind of maybe weren't tied up at the end of the season. I almost felt, I'm not sure what you guys thought about this, but there was obviously a few story threads that weren't really fully tied up. Like, for example, what happened to Narek at the end of the season. The last I think we saw of him, he was lying on the ground with a synth's boot in his neck while they were trying to disarm the beacon to send open the portal for the Uber synths to come through. And then obviously we got the rest of the episode in the last one there was very much centric around Picard dying, which obviously, that was very important, and to have all the emotional responses from the crew and the grieving and how they, and obviously the wonderful, wonderful farewell scene we got with Data. I don't think we could have asked for a better farewell to Data than how they handled that scene with Picard and Data in the what are we calling it in that the construct, that kind of artificial library kind of space or whatever that Data and Picard had their little fireside chat in. It was a wonderful farewell, I think, for Data. And because he was taken from us so quickly in Nemesis, we never kind of got a really good farewell for Data. So I think the end of the season did a really good job of finally us being able to farewell Data in a really good and honourable way. But that being said, Narek, we never found out what happened to Narek. Now, I saw an interview with, or a comment or something from Alex Kurtzman that indicated that, yes, Narek, there was meant to be a scene, I think, with Narek being maybe hauled off in Federation custody. I think maybe he was before Riker's fleet left to go back home again. I think there was meant to be a scene with Narek being hauled off by a couple of Starfleet security type people and then transported up to one of the Federation ships before Riker's fleet left, but it was maybe cut due to time constraints. But that being said, are there time constraints? Shows on streaming service, I mean, I understand when you do a show on network TV, it has to run exactly a certain length because a certain amount of TV commercials have to preside within the show, so it has to run a very specific length. But when you're making a show for streaming services, Netflix, Amazon, Disney Plus, CBS, All Access, whatever, people are streaming episodes. Surely there's no constraint as to how long those episodes can be. The episodes can be, 45 minutes long, or they can be an hour and 15 minutes long. So I think the producers probably could have included a scene like that, giving Narek a resolution to his character at the end. I don't see how an extra 3 minutes or 5 minutes would have broken the bank in the running time, because I think the last episode ran about 56 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they could have probably made that last episode, an hour, maybe an hour and a few minutes or something, just to kind of tie up all those loose ends. Because there were a few throwaways, like, oh, by the way, oh, yes, the synth ban has been lifted. Soji and Jean-Luc are now free to roam the galaxy without any fear of being locked up. But that all happened very quickly. I think, if the episode had maybe run another 10 minutes or so, I think maybe a few of those very abrupt moments, like, oh, by the way, yes, synth ban is cancelled. We're free to roam as we wish. Oh, by the way, we don't know what's happened to Narek. He's just we don't talk about him anymore. So that's just my 2 cents worth. Great to see 7 of 9. Yes, I agree, Dutchie. And I'm really hoping that that her presence continues in season 2. Obviously, at the end of the season, we saw her holding hands with Raffi whilst having a game of Calto, I think it was, in the mess hall area of the La Serena. Obviously, this was a bit of an abrupt, kind of hookup, but, this is another thing. I think all these little moments, as I said before, all these little moments like Seven and Raffi kind of holding hands and hooking up, and Narek not getting a farewell, what exactly happened, what happened to Commodore O, the synth ban being cancelled, all of these things could have probably been played, even if we had one more episode, or either one more episode, if there'd been 11 episodes in the season, or if our final episode, episode 10, had have maybe run for an hour and 10 minutes. I think a lot of these story elements could have been nicely tied up with a nice neat bow a bit more, just to give us all that satisfaction. But yeah, I loved 7 of 9 in this first season. I think her dynamic with Jean-Luc was fantastic. the shared history that they talked about in terms of their Borg connection and how their respective appearances affected each other. I think that the scene between Picard and Seven talking about how they hadn't kind of fully regained their humanity after their experiences with the Borg had finished, I think was one of the best scenes in the season. I really loved that scene, and in some ways, by involving Seven in Star Trek Picard, I think Picard was almost as much of a love letter to the Next Generation as it was to Voyager by bringing in Seven, by including her experiences in the first season, by including the Voyager theme within the show. I think there was a few moments within the series where we got to hear the Voyager theme playing, as kind of Seven's theme, which I think was fantastic. It's always great to have that musical connection, and there's a few little musical threads that ran throughout the season that connected the show back to Next Generation, back to Voyager, which I think was awesome to see as well. So I'm hoping that Glenn, I'm hoping the crew will be, we'll see the Rangers. Yeah, I think we've obviously had the Fenris Rangers mentioned a few times there. So whether I guess the question is, when the ship left, we've obviously got Seven at the helm on the La Sirena. Now, does this mean she's now part of the crew, and whatever adventures they face in season 2, that she'll be there along for the ride, along with all of our crew members? Or are they kind of just giving Seven a ride on La Sirena back to Federation space, dropping her back off at the Fenris Rangers headquarters, and we won't see her again? I'm really hoping that that she's kind of now part of the team. Cisco. Ooh, I did a video earlier in the year on other Trek characters. Hopefully you guys watched it. If not, go check it out on my channel. What Star Trek characters we might be likely to see in season 2 of Picard. Cisco I didn't include on my list because last time we saw Cisco, he was stuck in a Bajoran wormhole amidst the prophets. So I think whether we see him or not, I think is probably questionable. I think the top of the list, obviously we know that Guinan will be in season 2. That's really exciting. I think the dynamic between her and Picard was always, really good to watch on screen. I would love it if they brought Q back in season 2 for some little appearance. I think it would be great to see Q. I think it would be great to see Worf. I think it would be great to see Geordi. I think they're kind of the top of the list for me. Obviously, Dr. Crusher would be good to see as well. She's not as necessary now. Now that Picard's in his synthetic body, he doesn't have any medical issues to worry about. So we don't kind of need Dr. Crusher anymore. Would have probably thinking about that and thinking about the element that Picard is now in a synthetic body. He has less need for medical services than he previously did. It would have been maybe nice knowing that to have Picard share that scene in season 1 rather than with his doctor from the Stargazer. I forget his name, Dr. Benioun or something like that. That would have been a really good opportunity to have Beverly in there, but maybe they'll find a good way to bring Beverly into the show somehow. I think it's all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think any appearance by any Star Trek former character, whether it be Next Generation, DS9, or Voyager, is going to be a welcome appearance. I think nobody is going to, shy away from any former guest appearances by any character, no matter who they are. Obviously, there's ones that we probably would like to see more than others, but I think any of them are going to bring back that nostalgic, nostalgic hit in the heart. Because one of my favourite episodes this season, which was Nepenthe, I think just seeing Picard with Riker and Troy in season 1. Nepenthe was one of my favourite episodes. It brought back so much of an emotional response. It's kind of like, it's like seeing loved ones or family who you haven't seen for many years, and you haven't seen them for 20 years. They've been overseas somewhere, and they suddenly come home. It's an emotional experience, and I think obviously Riker and Troy had been through a lot emotionally with the passing of their son Thad. So yeah, I really enjoyed the Nepenthe episode, and I think, if we see other characters, Worf or Geordi, come back, it would be equally as emotional as well. Yes, Jen, I agree. I loved what Evan said about he wanted Elnor to meet Worf. Yes, for those of you who haven't seen my interview with Evan Evagora, who plays Elnor, check it out on my channel. Evan said in the interview with me that he would love to see Elnor meet Worf and have maybe a little sparring session, or maybe some fight training, or maybe Worf to give Elnor a few sword tips. I think seeing Elnor and Worf maybe utilize the holodeck on the La Sirena rather than Picard monopolizing it all the time for his bloody office, for them to actually use it for some other activities. I think it would be an awesome sight to see Worf and Elnor sparring, and as Evan mentioned to me, maybe Elnor gets a bit too big for his boots. Maybe Worf puts him in his place. Maybe Worf gives Elnor a few tips. Maybe even Elnor gives Worf a few tips. Maybe there's a few little tricks of the Kawat Malat that Elnor can pass on to Worf. Try this maneuver with your bat'leth, see if that works for you. That would be an awesome scene to see. I think and I think to a certain extent there was a few things that played out in season 1 that I thought maybe, obviously we had that little moment that Evan mentioned where Michael Dorn had come to set and had signed the slate, and everybody went crazy because they thought it was going to appear in season 1. There was another little hint in the dialogue that I thought maybe might have been a connection to Worf that didn't kind of play out, which was the bit where we were first introduced to the La Sirena, and Rios said to Jurati, Jurati said something to the effect of, all I could find was nothing but Klingon opera, that the computer or something on La Sirena was just full of nothing but Klingon opera. So I almost thought like we might have got a scene at the end of the season when Worf shows up as part of Riker's relief squadron in orbit of the planet. So not only Riker rocks up there, but maybe Worf is captaining one of the other ships. And I thought maybe if Worf shows up, because we thought, he signed the slate, the clapperboard, maybe he'll show up. And then I thought Worf was going to maybe, talk to Picard on the comms whilst in orbit of the planet after they've sorted out all their Romulan and, Ubersynth issues. And Worf was going to say something to Picard, and then Worf was going to see La Sirena and see Rios and say, Captain Rios, how is my ship working out for you? That La Serena that I sold you, that used to be called the Kaplak, you changed the name of it to La Serena, but is my Klingon opera still in the database? Something like that. That was what I was expecting might play out, because we got that little hint dropped of the Klingon opera being nothing in the database but Klingon opera, but that didn't. There's a few little things like that didn't quite play out, like at the beginning of the season, when we saw the dream sequence with Picard playing cards with Data, and Data had the hand of cards that were for all queens. Everyone was going, oh, well, does this mean Borg Queen? Does this mean Q? The Q for Q, as in, John Delancey Q. There was a few little things that popped up like that, references to Klingon opera, that we kind of go, oh, what does this mean? Does this mean we're going to be seeing Q? Does this mean we're going to be seeing Worf? But yeah, they just kind of never really, they just never went anywhere. They were just empty hints, empty promises that didn't quite play out. Just having a quick look back at the live chat. Q and Cisco are now buddies. A great Worf impression. Thank you. Very kind. It wasn't that good. It was average at best. But thank you, Majestic. I want Beverly Crusher. If she would have been the one instead of Riker, it would have blown our minds. In terms of being in the command chair of one of the ships. Yeah, I mean, what they certainly did come back with a lot of there were a lot of references in season 1 to All Good Things, the Next Generation finale, series finale in season 7. Obviously, we had references to Picard's illness, the Irremotic syndrome. We had Picard hanging out on the vineyard. There was a few elements that, because obviously this season was meant to take place kind of around the similar time frame as that series finale of Next Generation, and there was a few things that were obviously kept vaguely in the same ballpark, not exactly the same, but vaguely there. So yes, it would have been interesting, because obviously we saw Beverly, captaining a Federation medical ship in that All Good Things finale. So yeah, it would have been interesting to see her in the captain's chair of one of the other ships, or but I guess they already had Jonathan Frakes in for Nepenthe, so I guess it wasn't hard just to bung him on a green screen, and shoot that scene with him doing that communication for that last episode. I think yes, true, Charles. What about Reg Barclay? Yeah, Barclay would be a good one to see. Barclay obviously made a lot of appearances in Voyager. So he's obviously got, not only past history with Picard, but also with Seven of Nine through the Voyager connection, with him guesting on quite a few Voyager episodes in the effort to bring them back from the Delta Quadrant. I think that'd be good to see. I think first and foremost, the producers are probably going to favour the principal cast first and foremost before they kind of start. That being said, they obviously put Seven of Nine in the show, but that was a logical decision because of the dynamic that both her and Picard shared with their Borg connection. But yeah, I think Beverly, Worf, Geordi, I think all of those guys, are probably fairly high on the on the to-do list with the producers in terms of if they're going to bring back characters in season 2. But at least we know season 2 is happening, as I said, and it's it doesn't appear to be delayed, which is good. After my little chat with Evan, confirming that things were still going ahead and all of his dates and everything that that the producers had told him for shooting were hadn't changed at this point. So hopefully that COVID-19 curve is going to flatten, and things will start to be on the improve towards the middle of the year, and that and things like production will start kicking off again, and people won't be isolated, and production won't be cancelled. Yes, no, I haven't read the novel, the Picard novel yet. I went through all of the, as you guys might have seen in my reviews, I went through all of the lead up countdown comics. Haven't done the novel yet, so maybe while I'm in isolation, or social distancing at home, and as we all are stuck at home, I will maybe dust that off and have a read. That would be a good one. What other highlights did you guys think were? Drop some messages. What was everyone's favorite moments? Favorite moments from season 1. Moments that either hit you in the heart, brought a tear to your eye, or moments of for me, I think there was some great humour. I think there was. I love the character of Agnes Girardi in this first season. I think not only did she come out with some really good emotional performances and heavily, weighted performances of drama, but she got some really cracking lines of comedy as well. And I think Alison Pill pulled them off to superb execution. She's a great actress, Alison. I loved her in the newsroom, and I think there were some really cracking lines that Michael Chabon or any of the other writers wrote for her in this first season. Absolutely, Charles. Yes, Brent Spiner as Data. I think one thing that surprised me, about Data's appearance in season 1, in terms of how I felt about it, I think at the beginning of the season, I kind of thought, okay, their mission is going to be to get that single positronic neuron out of Soji or Daj, and implant that into a new body and, bring Data back. That was where I thought things were going. But having seen that amazing scene in the finale between Picard and Data in the office set, that was just so amazing, and such a heartfelt farewell to the character of Data. I really have to say I am completely satisfied that was our farewell and our goodbye to Data. I think I honestly couldn't have imagined a better last moment with Data, with that scene that he shared with Picard and asking Picard to unplug him from life support computer or whatever. I think that was fantastic, and I'm completely happy that Data is gone. I think he had his day. He had his wish fulfilled by Picard, and I really honestly don't think that if you kind of brought Picard, if you brought Data back now, I think it would undermine that final moment between him and Picard. I think that that moment that they shared in that study office set was just a fantastic one, and it had such emotion and such weight to bring Data back again. Now I think would undermine that farewell. So I'm completely satisfied that Data has had his day in the sun. That he is no more. He's finally is finally gone, and we can move on. That being said, of course, I'm quite happy to see if they want to bring back Brent Spiner as Dr. Alton Sung. again. I think that would be fantastic. Awesome to see Brent Spiner as Alton Sung, and I think the door has been left open. Maybe Picard will have to go back to the synth colony for a bit of a tune-up. Maybe he'll need his golem. Maybe he'll need his golem retuned or something. Maybe he's, my leg's a bit, swing to the right a bit. Can you just, fix that up for me? Because any medical issues or whatever from now on are going to be Android based, perhaps. So maybe he'll have to go back to the synth colony for another chat to Dr. Sung to get a little bit of a tune-up, perhaps. Just having a quick look through the live chat. It's always hard to talk and to read everything at the same time, so I have to pause and read what you guys have been chatting about, so I can include your thoughts and notes. And Annika and Carlos, I completely agree. The scene between Seven and Picard talking about their humanity and the Borg was certainly one of my highlighted scenes from this season. Fantastic moment between those two. I think that the Seven of Nine, Riker and Troy talking to Picard about the loss of their son, about remembering their memories about Data and their fondness of Data, I think was a fantastic highlight. It highlighted to me as well that these actors that haven't played these characters for 20 years or more have still got it going on. They can still rock it with the best of them. And if anything, I think that they did such a great job in season 1. I think the pressure is almost on a little bit for if Michael Dorn or LeVar Burton, Whoopi Goldberg, John Delancey, whoever else, maybe chooses to become a part of season 2, that it's like, okay, the bar has been set now, so it's, it's good to have that, they didn't disappoint, and I think others can, sit up and take notice that these guys have still got it. They're not shadows of their former self by any means. Green Ice loved seeing Soji breaking through the floor of that Romulan meditation room. Issa is a great actress. Is it Issa or Isa? I think it's Issa, isn't it? I think it's Issa. Yes. I think Issa's range of character performance, obviously she had to play not only Daj and Soji, but also Sutra in this first season. And each character, I think was, unique. I think she did an amazing job. She's a very talented actress. I think it'll be good to see where her character goes and develops for season 2. I completely agree with you, Jerry. I would love to see Janeway in season 2. I think the Janeway Picard dynamic could be a very interesting one, and I think particularly now that we have Seven of Nine on the ship with the crew, I think the dynamic not only could be very good between Picard and Janeway, but also between Seven and Janeway. I think there's always that bit of antagonism between Seven and Janeway, which, Seven, it would appear, is not afraid to push the boundaries in terms of doing things that need to be done, kicking Narissa off the ledge of the Borg ship, disintegrating Bajazil. Seven, obviously, she's got her own brand of vigilante justice, which, she obviously had that little heartfelt moment with Rios whilst sharing a bottle of dodgy synthetic alcohol. She sort of was maybe analysing her behaviour. But I think it would be great to see what the dynamic would be between Picard and Janeway, and Janeway and Seven. I don't know, maybe Seven, I don't know, Picard and Janeway can be discussing something, and Seven has to take sides, or I don't know. I think that would be a great thing to see. And now that Kate Mulgrew is no longer on Orange Is the New Black, that series has finished, and I'm not aware of her signing in up to any other series just yet. So she's certainly around and available, and she did a great job in that show. I think it would be good to see Janeway appear in some capacity. Dax and Worf were okay. Look, if it was, and I'm not sure how you do it. I mean, the whole Dax thing in DS9 was kind of a little bit disappointing. The way that Terry Farrell, was it? I think left the show in the last season, and they had to get Nicole DeBoer in to play Ezri Dax just for the last season. That was a bit disappointing. I would obviously, much rather see Jadzia Dax than Ezri Dax. Not to besmirch Ezri in any way, but obviously Jadzia was with us for 6 seasons, and Ezri was just with us for 1. So obviously everyone's emotional connections are a lot greater with Jadzia than they are with Ezri. But I'm not sure how you would work that in, unless there was some sort of time travel element involved, or some alternate timeline element. Okay, Tad. 7. So I assume Tad, you mean Jerry Ryan and Kate Mulgrew as opposed to Seven and Janeway. Maybe aren't that keen on each other. Although that being said, I mean, that obviously would, certainly be for interesting fireworks. Interesting fireworks on the show, if the actors maybe aren't that keen on each other, that could certainly add a bit of extra spark and gasoline to the fire. For a on-screen performance together. I think there's plenty of open possibilities, I think, for any characters. I mean, I even thought when I first heard about La Serena and the fact that Picard needed to contract a sort of a freelance, off the books kind of pilot who was a bit, maybe someone who didn't play by the rules too much. First person that came to my mind was Tom Paris from Voyager. He didn't play by the rules. He was, he was previously locked up in a Federation prison. There was a few questionable decisions he made throughout the course of, as you said, Lloyd, correct. Tom Paris made a few questionable decisions. He got demoted from lieutenant back to ensign at one point during Voyager, and he was obviously a really keen pilot. So I sort of thought, that would have been a great opportunity to maybe bring back Tom Paris as a freelance kind of captain, but I understand how that couldn't be the case because, I guess from a producer's point of view, we can't just fill up the ship and the cast of the show full of 50-year-old plus actors. We have to have a bit of new cast and a few young guns to take off their shirt and kick a soccer ball around the deck of the ship. for a bit of eye candy for both the boys and the girls, depending on which way you're inclined. So obviously I think one of my videos I did at the end of last year, before the show started, was a video asking the question: is the new crew going to shape up? Were they gonna shape up? To what had come before in Next Generation? Were we going to love the characters as much as we love the not only the Next Generation cast, but also our other series, Voyager, DS9, and so forth. Obviously all those characters have a soft place in our past. Yes, Milo. Tad, yes, Tom Paris was worthless. I don't know whether I'd say worthless, but whether or not you could bring in the daughter of Tom Paris and B'Elanna Torres. I forget what her name was, but I think she was born, I think, in the very last season of Voyager. So she'd probably be, if she was born in the last season of Voyager, I guess she'd probably be mid-20s, I suppose, by now. Does that sound about right? I think she'd be, maybe early to mid-20s, perhaps. You could certainly bring in Tom Paris and B'Elanna Torres' daughter as a cast member. That could be interesting. Grandpa Paris and Janeway's salamander babies. Wow. Oh God, that's I'd completely forgotten about that episode. That was bizarre. Yes. I'd completely blotted that episode out of my brain until you just mentioned it. SC. Cosmac. Or was it SC? Yes. Yeah. I think any of those would be a good addition to see. She was born on the last episode of Voyager, David. Yes. Okay. First person. What was her name? Somebody. Who's the first person in the chat to give me the name of B'Elanna and Tom Paris's daughter? Anybody? No one? Okay, that's right. I forgot. I don't know. I can't remember. It obviously only happened in the last episode or the last couple of episodes of Voyager. I can't remember what her name was. I don't think it was a Klingon name from memory. I think it was a very human kind of name, I think. Because I know B'Elanna Torres was a bit anti her Klingon heritage, and she even tried to have the child genetically modified to not have any Klingon DNA at all. So yes, I think it was a human sounding name. So Paris Hilton. Yes, okay. What other moments? What other moments from season one? The Borg. I think the addition of the Borg cube, the artifact, was a great addition and a great staging ground for stuff in season one. I think obviously Laris and Zhaban were great in the first few episodes of the season. The dynamics between Picard and Seven, comparing their Borg history together, was a highlight. I think it was a bit quirky, but I think Rios and his holograms was a highlight. Seeing Rios and all of his varying holograms on board the La Sirena was definitely a quirky highlight of the show, and a bit of an acting resume calling card for Santiago. I think he did a great job of pulling that off. Elnor Narissa fight. Elnor Narissa. Yeah, it was very brief sort of fight. I think there was a lot of jumping off walls and um, um, it happened very quickly. If I remember correctly, Jen, um, there was a bit of hand to hand, and then she got out of it by stabbing Hugh in the neck with one of her throwing knives, and then beaming out quickly as she could. Um, um, in some ways, in some ways, I think I enjoyed, I enjoyed the 7 of 9 Narissa fight at the end, um, more. I think 7 was definitely, on fire during that little stoush with Narissa. So that was a good scene to see. What else? The moving farewell to Data, I think, was very touching and emotional, and how that end of the season played out. I think Picard's overall journey from broken recluse to noble leader again, I think, was a great journey throughout the season. I think Picard emotionally, I think, went a long way in this season. I mean, we never saw Picard, Picard was a very distant captain on the Enterprise. He didn't fraternize with the crew too much. Only in the last episode of the show did he actually play poker with the rest of the crew. He never kind of told the crew while he was on board the ship, how he kind of felt about them. But in this season, we've got Picard, saying how much he loved Data. He's got hugging and kissing Riker and Troy. We've got Picard telling Raffi that, he loves her. Picard definitely turned out much more of an emotional person at the end of this season than he did when he was ever on Next Generation. He was a very staunch kind of, staunch, unapproachable kind of leader in Next Generation. But yeah, in this show, he was definitely, a bit more emotionally in tune, saying how much he loved everybody, kissing and hugging everybody, and expressing his emotions and feelings. So he's definitely, he's come a fair way. I think, old Jean-Luc in this course of this season. I think seeing Riker and Troy, and also Kestra. I think the girl that played Kestra as Picard and Troy's daughter. In the season, I think she did a fantastic job, and there was obviously immense emotional weight with the history of Riker and Troy's loss of their son. I think that was a great dynamic that played out. I enjoyed the La Sirena as our main ship. We never really got to know much about La Sirena. I think one thing that maybe disappointed me a little bit, and this is just probably being a bit of a Star Trek nerd and wanting to know about in the ins and outs of the ship, but we obviously in each of the various Trek series, whether that be Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, the ship is a character on the show. We have as much of a fond and emotional reaction to the ship as we do some of the characters. And I didn't really feel the producers were going for that same emotional connection. We never really got to know that much about La Sirena. We never got to find out where Rios had bought her from. Obviously, La Sirena means mermaid, so Rios has got a thing for mermaids. But who did he buy it from? What is its? I think a few more details. I think at the beginning of the season would have been nice just to kind of know. Oh, okay, this is where it's from. It's we know it's a Kaplan. What it was, Kaplan F-70 speed freighter or something, according to the the engineering hologram thing at Free Cloud, but yeah, just a few more details. I think about how fast, what warp speed it can go, what its weapon capabilities are, all that sort of nerdy stuff. I think we all would like to hear about, but the producers never really kind of gave us that information. I think La Sirena was left as a bit of a question mark in terms of it was just the ship they were on, and we didn't need to know too much information about the ship, So whether we'll find out a bit more about La Sirena in season 2, maybe maybe there'll be a few sets that we didn't see in season 1. I think there's probably not that many sets we could have. We've seen living quarters, we've seen the sick bay, we've seen the sort of the downstairs mess hall kind of eating area. We never saw the holodeck. Apart from it being Jean-Luc's Chateau Picard vineyard office, like we never saw them go in the holodeck and load a program or anything like that. It was just always Picard's vineyard office. So yeah, whether some more holodeck stuff is done for season 2 and that set is used for other holodeck environments, not just Picard's office. Because I imagine that would be quite a energy drain on the ship to have it running 24/7 just to be Picard's office all the time. Yes. What else? Look, Daj and Soji, Girardi, Raffi. I think Raffi was good. There were some great moments with Raffi. She had a great story arc. In the course of the show, I think going from alcoholic and drug affected at the start, and quite quite pissed off and quite jaded and so forth, and at the start, and being a bit antagonistic towards Picard, and then by the time we get to the end of the season, she's saying how much she loved him. So I think Raffi went through a great journey. The fact that she tried to reconnect with her son on Free Cloud, and her son kind of said, on your way, I'm not interested. So Raffi, went through quite a bit emotionally in the season, and then obviously, and then at the end of the season, comforting Elnor when Elnor broke down and cried in her arms at the passing of Jean-Luc. I almost think that the scene between Raffi and Elnor, with him breaking down and her comforting her, was certainly as much, if not more, about Raffi as it was about Elnor. Like, she needed that. She needed to hold him. I think in losing her son, in terms of him not wanting to her be a part of his life when she left Free Cloud, I think Raffi needed to give Elnor a hug, as a sort of a pseudo son replacement, as much as Elnor needed comforting from the passing of Jean-Luc, I think. So that scene definitely played out equally weighted towards both of those characters, I think. So Raffi had a really intensive journey throughout the course of the season as well, I thought. So we didn't know much about most ships until after the Trek manual comes out, or when Eagle Moss makes a model. Okay, fair enough. I'm not sure. Is there a model out of La Sirena yet? I haven't seen anything. One of you guys might know more about that. I think Data's journey is not done. I didn't like the scene. He never had a chance to be a father. Yes, that's. Yeah, it would. That's a decent point, Lloyd. I think it would have been nice, maybe, if there was a way before Picard switched off the life support to Data, whether Soji could have made some kind of neural link or something to the plugged her, put a USB in the back of her head or whatever, and plugged herself into the hard drive thing where Data's consciousness was stored, and and maybe shared a moment with Data as a father-daughter moment. But it would have been nice. But would it have taken away from our last? Would it have taken away from our last scene with Picard? I think first and foremost, it was most important to have that farewell between Jean-Luc and Data. I think, and although I think a father-daughter scene would have been great to see between Soji and Data before Picard pulled the plug, maybe it would have undermined the farewell between Picard and Data. I don't know. It's I suppose you could swing it either way. Really, I think. I wonder. Speaking of Sutra, I wonder whether Sutra will be back in season 2. Obviously, she's not dead. I think Dr. Sung obviously deactivated her with his little EMP pen or whatever you want to call it. So whether we see Sung again in season 2, whether we see Sutra again, maybe. One thing I thought was a bit dangerous, really, is at the end of season 1, I think the beacon, they turned off the beacon to open the portal to the Uber synths, but I think in some of the establishing shots or whatever, we saw the beacon still active. Well, not still active, but it was still erected, on the planet. It's like, shouldn't somebody be taking that down? Because if somebody could just come out in the middle of the night and turn it back on again, surely, surely that has to be dismantled or something to that effect, because leaving that Ubersynth beacon constructed on the planet there just seems to be asking for trouble. We just don't want to see gigantic mechanical space centipedes coming through into the Alpha Quadrant. That could be bad. Yeah. But yeah, whether we see Sutra back, whether we see Sung back, maybe. I know Brent Spiner's said he'd be definitely keen to play Dr. Alden Sung again. I think it would be good to see Sutra again as an antagonistic character. Whether we see Commodore O again, whether season 2 is going to have a Romulan element to it, or whether we move on from that. Maybe season 2 will feature Klingons or the Ferengi or Cardassians or who knows what in some capacity. In season 2 perhaps, because obviously we had a fairly strong Borg presence and a fairly strong Romulan presence, incredibly strong Romulan presence. I mean, half the cast and everything, all the stuff, everything that went down on the Borg cube, all of that was Romulan centric. So we've definitely seen a lot of Romulan activity. So maybe it'd be good to see a few other races. I think give us some Klingons, provided they're not Discovery Klingons. We're not going to have any Discovery Klingons on Picard. Thank you very much. I think we want to see Klingons in the fashion that we remember them. And I was very glad to hear an interview with Alex Kurtzman saying that if Worf was to come back, he would look like we remember him. He would not be a Discovery looking Klingon, which is good to know. But yeah, I think whether we see Klingons, Ferengi, Cardassians, I don't know what else. Any of those guys would be good to see again. Cardassians, Nazi, Bajor, Jews, history lesson to sci-fi. Yes, Jerry, true. Roman, I think I kind of almost, unless we're bringing back characters, and antagonistic characters like Commodore O or Narissa again, although Narissa got pushed off. Maybe I don't know. Could she fell a fair way. I don't know whether she's could survive that fairly long fall that she did. She's I'd be surprised. We'll see. Stranger things have happened. Yeah, I think let's see some maybe diversity of races again. But yeah, I think whether we bring back Worf or Geordie or whoever else, would be great to see for the second season of the show. So yes, there you go. I think we've kind of gone through most of the talking points I had kind of written down for season 1, and a few little wishes and hopes and dreams and goals and so forth for season 2. That's been good to talk about. And I'd like to take the opportunity, because obviously now that Picard's not on anymore, to obviously thank you guys, Glenn and Jennifer, Tad, and DJ, and SC, and everybody who has been. I'm obviously going to keep. I'm going to be doing live streams and so forth. This is probably just as we get further away from Star Trek Picard. Hopefully we'll have some information on Discovery soon. Whether Discovery, I'm not as excited for Discovery season 3 as I was for Picard, but hopefully that'll be a good show. Hopefully they've learnt their lessons from the first season, and hopefully season 3 of Discovery will more closely resemble the quality of Picard season 1. There was a lot of course correction done in season 2, which gave me a little bit more faith in the show again. So hopefully that will continue in season 3. So hopefully I'll have some news. I have put the feelers out. I have put the feelers out to maybe trying to tee up another cast interview. Can't promise anything yet. Haven't heard anything yet, but I have put the feelers out to maybe see if I can be lucky enough to score another interview with another Picard cast member. So hopefully that will come off. Obviously can't promise anything as of yet, but I'm waiting to hear. And in the meantime, I'll just be doing some other reviews of other sci-fi shows. If there's some trailers or some news that comes out. Oh, one thing I did hear about. Oh, thank you, SC. You're doing a great job, mate. Keep it up. We can all find fault in treat. No need to wish for the death of the franchise. No, not at all. Not at all. I'm just, obviously being a content creator on YouTube, and being, maybe, a little bit more Star Trek focused than other genres. At the moment, we've got a bit of a void now that Picard's finished and that nothing else is on. It's a little harder to find new things to talk about. But I did hear the other day that we might actually get. Thank you. But we might actually get a Lower Decks. The Lower Deck series might actually come our way before Discovery Season 3. And I'll tell you, I just got to say, thank you, Cosmac. Thank you, Cosmac Grandpa. Much appreciated. I shall give you a special super chat. Thank you for your contribution there. Really appreciate that. Mate, in today's climate, more than ever, with coronavirus and everybody stuck at home, YouTube is kind of all I can do at the moment. My other work has certainly completely vanished in the light of all of our social isolations that are going on. So I really appreciate the super chat, mate. They're much appreciated. So I did hear the other day that we might be getting Lower Decks before we get Discovery Season 3. So that will be interesting. I hear Lower Decks is kind of like if you like Rick and Morty. I think it's kind of going to be along the lines of Rick and Morty or Final Space. I haven't seen Final Space. I have seen Rick and Morty. But I think, yes, tonally, I get the impression something like Final Space or Rick and Morty is kind of going to be what we might expect for Lower Decks. And yes, the hint that I got the other day maybe implied we might be getting Lower Decks before we get Discovery Season 3. So, yeah, can't wait for that one. No, I won't be going far, Tad. No fear. Don't fear. I'll still be putting out content every week as I do. I am doing some videos on Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the final season, season 7 of that at the moment. So if anybody happens to watch Clone Wars, I'll be doing some videos on that. I will still intend to do a weekly live stream as we have done today, where we can talk about sci-fi news and all that sort of stuff, and what's coming up for Trek and all that sort of thing. If I hear any news about Lower Decks, if I hear any news about Discovery Season 3, I'll certainly be doing breakdown videos on any trailers or any news that comes out on that front. Yes, Jen, I need to read the Picard novel. I had intended to do it, and as I said, now's a good time. So I might, whilst I'm at home and doing the whole social isolation thing, I very well might read the Picard novel now that the show's over, and I might do a review on that even. I'll see how I go for other content. Depends what news comes out in the next week or two in terms of other Trek and everything. So. That'll all be good to see. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate your kind words there. I'm always happy to come and have a chat with you guys every week. Just before I go, is the time that I do my live streams, which I've tried to do of an evening, kind of around that sort of 7 to 9 p.m. kind of time frame. Does that suit everybody in terms of, or is it another time? Is everybody happy with the times that I've been doing my live streams, or is there another time that people go, oh, no, this is a good time? It's sort of, in the evening after dinner, it's happy to sit down and watch me watch me crap on for an hour about Star Trek and other things. Maybe leave a comment in the comment section if everyone's been happy with the times that I've been scheduling these live streams for. I've sort of been trying to do it around that sort of, early to mid-evening kind of time in the US, so around that sort of 7 to 10 p.m. kind of window, I suppose. I figure everyone's had tea and everything and can sit down and have a chat for a little bit. I think we'll maybe wrap it up there. I've sort of talked about all the things I had written down to discuss. I will be back again for another live stream next week. I'll try to do one of these every week for you guys having it. Thanks again for the super chat, Cosmac. Much appreciated. As I said, it really helps me out in this climate, because obviously running a YouTube channel is a bit like a full-time job. So always appreciate everybody's support, even if it's just obviously the super chats are great, and obviously all your views and support are great as well. I really appreciate it from everybody. And thanks so much for joining us. So I really appreciate everyone's viewership today. It's been fantastic. Keep a lookout. Maybe make sure you got the notification bell clicked on your subscription, so that if I do post videos and stuff, everybody knows about them. Thanks very much for coming along, guys. Appreciate your viewership, and I will see you again next week for another live stream, and maybe later in the week for one of my other videos. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you next time.